Yeah, ka say de eyo Paul Adom Otchere ye tiremu a OSP abefa no abeche no na de nti ne arrest no ni na ne say ye detain no nso ni na ne say no ye former board chairman of Ghana Airport Company Limited na ye chance ke die bi akoso corruption sense bi akoso nti ne ye se unua ye invite obra na betoto ano ye betoto ano na ka de nsem egu ho na busuam na me no ka say ne lawyer abetiremu say Paul Adom Otchere bebi a ye de no koye no oni ho na sisi a ye hwehwe no ye hunu amako National Security Office yesi oni ho bebi a tese bebi a mode no kwankasa oni ho nti ye sisi a lawyers po eni bebi a ohye nti ye bisa se Paul Adom Otchere owe he de nti na ebusa ye tiremu a ne ko lawyer ne tiremu sisi a no bail condition no mode ma Paul Adom Otchere ne se onfa two landed properties ombra let's say ebi asase mienu bi what as two landed properties na Paul Adom Otchere say only two landed properties bia o bebi a oni hwe nti na sisi a no who attendance inti na ebe ma bail condition inti na bail condition ye hold something valuable to you ye so mind e bia fa say wo wi asema obaye no de o wa ne ka inti na bia wo wi asema e bia memeti he e bia me wi asema e bai property me wa e valuable to me per any arrow glass am wo inti na ye beje wa arrow glass no ato inti arrow glass no eni unti obeba court what you say na ya judge case no eso me no ka say bail condition de ma Paul Adom Otchere akoye say de ye charge no for say ye charge na Kofie. But as intended no lawyer bet you messless mama yunkuti number.
Speak to one of the lawyers for Paul Adom Otchere, Lenin Anani Ej Nelson. Thanks for joining us, counsel. Where is the whereabouts of your client at the moment?
A very good evening to you and your viewers this evening. As I speak to you, I'm unable to say for a fact where our client is, except to mention that he's been moved from the office of the special prosecutor. We are getting conflicting reports as to his location. We've been to the National Security Head Office and we've been informed he's not there. And so we are still making frantic efforts to locate specifically where he's been taken to.
Right. The OSP has released a statement saying that your client was not able to meet his bail conditions. What is the difficulty here?
Now, first of all, the statement by the OSP and all honesty is out of place. The challenge that the OSP has set is essentially to give the dog a bad name so that you can hang it. Because it is unreasonable in the context of bail to require an accused person to produce properties in his own name. What the OSP is essentially saying is that persons who lack properties or poor people in this country cannot own or cannot make bail in this country. The shocking fact is that while taking the profile of the suspect indicated that he does not own any landed property. And so for the OSP to set two landed properties in his name as precedent for his bail condition is essentially concluding to hang him and detain him. And so we find the bail conditions very unreasonable. It is akin the person to buy bail, and we think that it is completely out of place for any reasonable law enforcement agency to require such bail conditions.
But are you working to meet the conditions, or are you throwing your hands up in despair?
As lawyers, we are going to deploy every legal means necessary and every legal means ethical to meet any conditions that the law sets. But as you are well aware, where those conditions are also unreasonable, there are options available to us, and we intend to pursue it to the fullest. I must point out, yes.
Go ahead.
I must point out that as far as these bail conditions are concerned, except the Office of the Special Prosecutor is asking our clients to find money to go and buy two landed properties so he can secure his bail. It is completely out of place because the suspect says, I do not own a landed property. So that condition for now cannot be met. It is unreasonable.
But what other options are available to you to ensure that you secure his release?
I mean, we are still discussing our options, but the bottom line remains that in the hierarchy of affairs, the OSP ranks lower to our courts. And the courts always have the power to relook at conditions that are set by such bodies. But the fundamental point remains that these conditions that have been set by the OSP is calculated to detain Paul Adom Otchere and nothing else. It is solely calculated to detain him, even whether for a night or two and nothing else. The conditions can, because you see, the point is that usually when law enforcement require bail, they don't even want properties of the suspect, so that in case the suspect runs away, the person who has true surety would forfeit his properties and can't produce the suspect. It is out of the ordinary that law enforcement requires that the suspect should provide landed properties in his own name. In situations where you ordinarily even provide, the court would often reject it, asking that somebody has to come and bail you. And so we find what the OSP has done completely out of place, out of line, unprecedented, and no well-meaning Ghanaians should endorse this, especially for journalists, because this is setting the tone for getting people to keep quiet when their issues in respect of their operations come up for interrogation.
Right. Counsel, where Paul Adom Otchere stays currently, is it not his own house? Can he not use that as one of the landed properties?
He has indicated, like I said, in his suspect profile, that he does own a landed property. That property belongs to his mother, properly so called. And that is why it is. And so it cannot be, like I've stated, to require him to own landed property. That, as I sit here, I don't own landed property. So if I come into conflict with the law, I can't have bail. If the average person on the streets come into conflict with the law, he has to own landed property to be able to make bail. Mind you, the purpose of bail is to secure the attendance of the suspect and not as punishment. And so they must be reasonable. And especially in the case of somebody like Paul Adom Otchere, who is a public person, who is well known, it will not even be out of place to grant the person a self-recognizance bill, not to talk less such unreasonable and unconscionable conditions as the Office of the Special Prosecutor has said. We think that this is setting back our democratic values and clock by far many miles. And we should be ready to speak against it on any day.
Will you be heading to court for a bail variation?
As I said, we are still discussing our options. And in the coming days, you see what steps would be taken towards realizing our client's freedom as it properly should be.
All right, Counsel, ahead of the meeting with the OSP, we saw a letter written by your chambers to the OSP. What were your initial concerns?
The initial concern was that, again, the OSP's letter came at a time when most of us were unavailable too. And so, as has been the practice with law enforcement, and this is not the first time, if for any reason they are unable to realize counsel's presence, we would usually engage with them and then the meeting will be rescheduled. But again, as if it is some premeditated and some pre-scheduled scheme at all points and in all intent to get Paul Adom Otchere detained, that letter went in a matter of 2 hours. The OSP had responded. In fact, we saw the response in the media even before it actually reached us. And for us, that speaks to a certain pre-calculated attempt there and skew these facts to detain Paul Adom Otchere. We don't think that the OSP is acting in good faith, and we think that moving forward, all well-meaning Ghanaians, again, should speak against this, because we cannot have law enforcement use its powers in the oppressive manners that the OSP is exerting the powers that they want.
Right. What are the specific allegations against your client, and has he been formally charged?
In fact, that is the other inconsistency in the statement that the OSP released. The OSP purports to have charged our client, and yet again they say that they are investigating possible procurement breaches. The suggestion being that they themselves are inconclusive regarding the findings that they have or what charges they are proceeding. Now, even more surprising is the fact that they claim the contract was awarded to a body other than what the board approved, meaning that the board did approve a body. But even more strange, the managing director who signed those contracts is working, and yet the board, who as it were sits at a higher level and only provide policy direction and approval, being imposed with outrageous and unconscionable bail conditions in the hope that they will be detained if they fail to meet it. We think that the OSP's approach to these issues does not bode well for our gains when it comes to criminal jurisprudence, and we should all be willing to deal with it.
Counsel, what explanations has your client given for the allegations leveled against him?
I would for now not want to go into those merits, but for those of you who have access to TV, Paul Adom Otchere himself this morning laid out the facts as relates to the issues before the OSP on Metro TV this morning. And that is just what he stuck with and what he has told the OSP as far as his knowledge and the matters that are in discussion are concerned. Nothing beyond that. And so whatever he said this morning in relation to the board approving based on recommendations that were made and based on assessments and non-financial commitment by GACL remains what the record reflects as being the position of the board on this.
Do you think he's being victimized?
I think so, because we all know, in fact, that Paul Adom Otchere has been one of the vocal critics of the special prosecutor. And throughout the time of his criticism, he has consistently maintained of schemes and attempts to more or less silence and punish him. And it is why I say that journalists particularly must be up and speaking, because today it is Paul Adom Otchere. Tomorrow it might be somebody else. Nowhere in the jurisprudence of this country has it been said that a person must own landed property to be able to make bail. And even when they were asked to vary the bail conditions because the suspect had stated he owned no landed property, they blatantly refused and insisted that if he does not own landed property and therefore cannot produce properties in his name, he was going to be detained until he has met it. Clearly, he's been victimized with the sole purpose of detaining him with the hope that he would keep quiet in respect of matters of the OSP. But we know our client is a man of conviction. And regardless of what happens, what he believes to be right, he would insist and speak against no matter what happens with the OSP.
Tena wutia Nick Denole ne kanoe Nicholas Anane. In some of them, I said lawyer and poor ni baby and a client sha. Let us ajigong. Because only BNI, only OSP office or only national security or no was him. It's the end ni lawyer ne chemo bail condition he had or John Confiance bail condition be no 2 landed properties say. Instead they won't say because on to me 2 landed properties no bail condition no. It's still like you detaining no. Ye man ne bill ye. E na bill no so ma se na ma chim bill no ye man ne say ya waji bill na oko ya close case no bill no se na be court and they holding something valuable to you. It's in the lawyer no to man sisi ano bill condition enye enti ye bisa se Paul Adom Otchere ono efie na otem no enye ono ani fie na e na host ni bisa na answer lawyer ne man ne say efie no if you know what to the property and you no Paul Adom Otchere de ne maame oni maame dia nti bia oni maame di mu eso oni nti oni maame di mu ne de enye Paul Adom Otchere dia ne maame dia akoye se Hakimi o se ne boot ne earpiece cry ne maame dia uchu motan ne maame dia nti eni ne di mu nti se Paul Adom Otchere no ye bisa se o se he na also mo mbode na we detain no for 2 days na ye san ne bibi o sha ye eya ha adwen kakra ebusuan wate ase ebusuan ni bibi a omo ba hye ebe ha adwen then the Paul Adom Otchere ni lawyer Nicholas Anane ni sema wabetre no then also dwen fa ho e was anka ye ho location no bibi o hye and as a bail condition too much 2 landed properties sen just hold something valuable to the person say be ya obeba court attendance nti and yema bail conditions attendance painting say be court nti attendance nti pe na wo ma me 2 landed properties because fabi efi yes is can jet e rade da asase we asim na ye rade dia nso me no kase ye ton asase moja odaseni meti e minihwe dia come name sleepers ebusia ten ye de odwon comment section message do beto comment section also a che wa adwen aha air panash media tv se na meti mu no medas